Aum Sairam. Hara Hara Shankara, Jaya Jaya Shankara. Episode 27. Shri Mahaswami, the sage with eyes of light, the diary of a seeker of truth, Dr.Serge Demetrian. Dear devotees, now we shall listen to the second section of part 2 of this divine book under the subtitle The Lotus Pond. The lightning between the fingers. Shri Mahaswami builds with a patience he only could possess something in my eyes. After numerous initial encounters from which I felt tottering with a headache and eye pains in the back of the eyeballs that were followed by sleeplessness at night, I am now able to look straight into his eyes as much as he wants me to. This evening, sitting on the earth before his hut, he looked at me in another way. He had kept his left hand in front of his left eye, leaving a small slit between the index finger and the middle finger. He then looked at me through his interstice in the same manner. When he contemplated the stone statues of the gods and goddesses and the Shivalinga before consecrating them, the steady lightning of his eye, having become finer, gained an unimaginable force of penetration. During this time, he counted on his right hand with the thumb passing over the other fingers the same way as he does when he repeats divine names, japa. He allowed me to guess his intention. I stared into his left eye, then in both his eyes as he had lowered his hand. The darkness of the night started to creep in, and I clearly observed how in the place of Shri Mahaswami's eyes there opened up two deep wells as if coming from the center of the earth. Out of both there gushed forth in bubbling waves a double jet of black light. Soon the left eye of Swamiji began vibrating. I observed with high precision how it transformed itself in a white light that took the form of a small Spatikalinga which was surrounded by brilliance. And while this jewel of transparent crystal, which was illuminated into white by an interior brilliance, took shape in his eye, I felt the same Spatikalinga appearing in my heart. It was larger, less dense, but surrounded by the same white brilliance. I closed my eyelids and turned my physical eyes towards the interior, trying not to lose anything of the wonder that had begun to develop silently with a majestic rhythm in my depths. During those long minutes, a feeling of an immense happiness radiated from my chest. It started to withdraw little by little only when the image of the crystal gem slowly commenced to remove itself. I opened my eyelids. Shri Mahaswami was still in front of me but had changed his position. The head had turned towards some visitors. I left and came back later in the night. Shri Mahaswami was sitting on his rope bed in the hut, resting, his head directed towards the door. One could have thought he was waiting for me. I observed him through a narrow slit of the door for perhaps 1 minute. He caught in flight my look and he replied in the same instant. His eyes were concentrating within themselves the color of the flame that is his body, a transparent flame barely solidified. His divinity is evident. It is indisputable. Karveti Nagar, Tuesday, 7th September 1971. This morning I reached the lotus pond later than usual. Shri Mahaswami had just come out of the hut. He stopped as soon as he saw me. He waited for me until I did my habitual round, pradakshina, by the right of the entire hermitage, and then, Once in front of him, I prostrated. This time he requested through gesture that the group crowded around him move away, indicating that he wanted to have the space free between him and me. When I finished the traditional salute, he kept me kneeling with the hands in Anjali before him in public for several minutes. His lips moved, pronouncing something with an inaudible voice. Then he closed the eyes for a long moment in a serious and very concentrated attitude. Korveti Nagar, Saturday, 11th September 1971, Gokulashtami. The morning at home had been peaceful enough. The time seemed short as it is taken up by 4 to 5 requisite hours for bathing and dressing, cleaning the room and washing the clothes, gymnastics, hatha yoga exercises, kitchen activities and eating lunch very early as I do not take any breakfast. These activities take strangely so much time that it seems they had been planned or programmed by some. Well, which is beyond my comprehension. No doubt, it is what I need. Without these types of obligations, I would read. I habitually read a lot and work mentally, and maybe I would thus overstrain the nervous system, which is already tense due to the torrent of the daily darshans and meditations. However, I do wonder why I am not permitted to walk a little more. By the end of the afternoon, I woke up by 5:30 p.m. from a necessary sleep of 4 hours. The rest was better than usual and there was a mood of spiritual expectation. I hurried, for I felt as if pulled towards the lotus pond. Indeed, Sri Mahaswami sat as usual on the last stair of the pond and had just started his evening prayer. Round him, the air was so much charged with spiritual force that I could not come nearer. Although the conditions were favorable, it was calm with only a few visitors and none of my so-called enemies on the horizon. I started by placing myself at some 20 meters distant from him. On his right, as he faced the south, night had fallen. In the tropics, the dark descends sometimes with the rapidity of an automatic and fluid setting on a theatrical stage. Sri Mahaswami was engaged in a universal ritual or office. I could not see anything despite the oil night lamp. I felt him, however, as a black flame addressing the whole universe. After 45 minutes, I ventured to come closer, up to 10 meters from him and then progressively to 3 meters. The spiritual atmosphere was exceptionally dense. To my joy, he was keeping at a distance the more bigoted of my enemies among the assistants by slipping 1 or 2 neutral visitors between him and me. Then, with a clear intention, he never does anything by chance. He showed to me his naked foot and permitted that I should contemplate it for a long time. I am certain that the sole of his foot radiated a discreet, diffuse yellow rose light. I looked then at his eyes. They were open as during the great days full of blessings. In their center, a channel was replacing the pupil. Through this there flowed or gushed, as if to his wish, little waves of light or shots of fire similar to lightning. When he finished his prayer, Sri Mahaswami ordered his assistants to recite the 18th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, fragments from the Bhagavata Purana and the Narayaniyam, dealing with the relations of the Guru with his disciple. Then only I came to know that it was Gokulashtami, the day of celebration of the birth of Sri Krishna. I then remembered my first encounter with Sri Mahaswami at Secunderabad. 3 years ago, on another Shri Krishna Jayanti day, in the compounds of a typographical firm, which was, when one considers it, a symbolic place for a seeker after truth interested in writing. My darshan continued with the meditation being elevated to new heights. For 10 to 15 minutes, Sri Mahaswami drew me mentally very near to him. By then, he had accomplished a sort of supplementary universal office. It was as if he would test me with his joined palms by directing his stretched arms towards the right side where I stood. Immediately, I felt I should offer my prayer to Kamakshi, the Divine Mother, and at that very second, the Queen of the Universe sprang up in front of me. She had taken a whitish human form. Although less clear, being slightly inconsistent, I could still feel her presence as a human being. Her form seemed to question me. Why did you call me? I had only one need, and it stood in one word, moksha, the final liberation. A problem seemed to arise. What to do until then? I asked that Sri Mahaswami should take care of everything, take every decision. The great goddess had patiently listened to me right up to the end. Then she became diaphanous, transparent, and disappeared in the direction of Sri Mahaswami, who, there in front of me, was immobile and omniscient. He seemed to be the axis around which the universe could not do other than turn. After 5 hours of darshan, I greeted him with an extended prostration and regretfully left. He quickly stood up, simply spread his orange cloth on a stone step and lay down. When I had arrived on the higher step and turned once again towards him, he seemed already asleep, or at least wanted to make us believe so. After a short interval at my residence, I came back to the reservoir with the intention to spend the night on the stone stairs in a corner farther from Sri Mahaswami. To my surprise, I found him awake in his hut, speaking with a loud and melodious voice. He probably considered that his devotee had still to be subtly instructed after the experiences of the day. I stood near him for 2 hours until midnight. Menacing clouds chased me from his presence. During the remainder of the entire night, there fell a torrential rain. On the hard bench of the mill, I had a bad sleep and in addition a bad dream. I wriggled like an eel in the claws of a dangerous force and was unable to oppose it even by the holy name Narayana, for voicing the holy name did not help me anymore. Then an idea was conveyed out of nowhere. Pronounce the name in the heart, that is voicelessly. This I did. The unexpected assault was repelled at that very second. Karvetinagar, Sunday, 12th September 1971. Shiva as the Destroyer. This morning I woke up early and immediately started reading the 18th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita as I had heard it yesterday in front of Sri Mahaswami. By 6:30 a.m. I was at the hermitage. Swamiji had not yet come out to give darshan. I was told he is in Anushtana. I was also tired after the 7 hours spent yesterday in his presence and did not persist. In the afternoon, Sri Mahaswami came out after 2 p.m. He was in a terrible mood. What a difference from the days when he came from his Anushtana, vaporous, almost translucent, with the lineaments of his face extremely refined after his dip in the waters of the infinite. This time he was Shiva as the destroyer, the swarm of worlds that waited for their annihilation in some corner of the universe was only known by him as he was the black hole. surrounded by a purplish haze with severe and tense features but devoid of hate or cruelty. He simply accomplished his duty. He had become nothing more than an aged man, the legs covered with wrinkles, the skin generally like matte gold, the gleam of health having become greyish and purplish. He was old, ancient as time. Only the eyes were the same, for how could they change? His eyes, the perceptible proofs of the infinite. His eyes were limpid and open, with the window of the pupil leading one towards the ocean of azure light behind them. His eyes were partially also my eyes, but his had arrived at the last accomplishment of perfection that is far almost out of sight by comparison to mine. He perceived my trouble and searched for me above the black heads of the visitors covered with coconut oil. I felt several times the short but palpable gentle touch of his look. A very fine silken brush. I observed how he continuously moved his lips. I would have liked to prostrate, but I had not space enough, as the traditional prostrations are celebratory. One needs place and time. He felt this, and straightway he entered the hut, an infallible means for scattering the visitors. Aware of his habits, I patiently waited. After some time, he reappeared and gave to me the opportunity to throw at his feet all my suffering. I remained a few minutes, kneeling before him, the hands in prayer. I am the only person to act this way. After the customary prostration, he looked at me for a long time, glancing several times from my head to my knees, until the light of my heart appeared and chased away the clouds of ashes, which darkened my mind and hindered the life of my body. He allowed me to stand up only when he was sure that the beauty he had planted in my heart would no more be stifled by the miasma of doubts and fears. I had already seen him this way some time ago here at Karveti Nagar. On that day, towards evening, there prevailed around the hermitage a heavy fog, black, foul-smelling, which was deadly suffocating. Out of the overheated soil burst in minute fractions of seconds short flames that were imperceptible to the normal sight but not less real. Sri Mahaswami, unrecognizable, stood concealed behind an impenetrable facade so that one should not see his face. He did not speak. He did not reply to the prostrations. Round him and the hermitage, everything was somber and menacing. The air had become heavy and it almost smelt like overheated pitch. The sun concealed itself, frightened by the impending disaster, but around the lotus pond there still lingered a faint, phosphorescent light which made the hut look as if carved out of a rotten tree trunk. The night swooped down before the normal hour. It was reddish with an intensity which emanated from the enflamed earth. With ghost-like jerky gestures, assistants and devotees had tried to prostrate to him. What else could they do? I had been able to accomplish a prostration, perhaps with greater courage, born out of my desperation. Only Ishvara, as the destroyer, could still cut the chains that bound me to the transitory world of the illusion. The second day, always in the evening, for 2 or 3 hours, Sri Mahaswami has uttered only the name of Ishvara in series of 4, articulated 2 by 2. Shiva Shiva, Shiva Shiva. His name was completing his own work. Where was the cluster of galaxies that had to be erased, dried, scattered in some corner of the universe, known only by the one that had brought it to life by drawing it out of nothingness. Everything finished as it has started, without anybody having observed it. Ishvara, dressed in human body, abandoned his fearful outlook before someone could guess what it was. Those who were round Sri Mahaswami, the assistants and visitors, did not notice anything of the terrific aspect he just showed, perhaps to me, as he knew I would not be afraid. What for I had to be frightened of? Pleasing or terrifying forms, are these not engendered by the same author, Ishvara? The forms react among themselves. The one who created them remains indifferent and is beyond the variegated aspects of his own creation. In our essence, we partake of the steady, eternal nature of Ishvara, the Creator, and his nature is Brahman. Where is there the place for terror? Sri Mahaswami appeared like this after having temporarily lent to me the necessary sight, for he knew that I will properly utilize this opportunity, and it is really what this one tried. He absorbed to the smallest fraction everything of what was being shown to him, being convinced that Sri Mahaswami had to take on a fearful aspect in order to destroy some obstacles on the path of this devotee of his. Devotees, we shall continue to listen to the lotus pond in the coming episode, bowing at the holy feet of the Gurus. Aum Sairam. Hara Hara Shankara, Jaya Jaya Shankara.